what with it being the end of February here dang near already, we've got March Madness like 3 to 4 weeks away is all. So it's time for us. That means it's time for us now to finally start watching some of the college basketball season, or finally start paying attention to what's going on a little bit in the college basketball season. And on my show here, if you haven't noticed yet, for all topics, we start in Minnesota, and that in this case would have us talking Minnesota Gophers men's basketball, which has been atrocious for basically the entire year up until the last 2 games. When I was recording last week's episode, we were playing, or maybe it was the day after, I don't know, but we were playing Maryland, and they were the 6th ranked team in the country. We hadn't won a single Big Ten game yet, and sure enough, boom, we beat them 68-63. Unbelievable. Our very next game here, just the other night, we're playing Rutgers. This was also a home game for the Gophers, and while we were up by, I want to say, 1 point at halftime, we beat them in the second half by an over 20-point margin to close out the game victorious for our second win in a row, 83-61 over Rutgers. Now they do have a few games left in their schedule yet. 3 games left, as a matter of fact. The next game will be on Sunday, the 28th here of February, at Illinois, and that is a 7 p.m. Central Standard Time in the evening start. Illinois is a winnable game for, they're a mid-level mediocre team, and granted, who knows with this Gophers team. We beat a terrible team in Rutgers, and we beat the 6th ranked team in the country in Maryland, so who knows what that means for our chances against Illinois. But then after that, we've got 2 games left again after Illinois' game, the second of which being Wisconsin. That is our final home game of the year, and then our last game of the entire regular season before we don't get invited to the NCAA tournament, and we probably don't get invited to the NIT tournament either. That's how bad we are. If there's another tournament below the NIT yet, which I believe there is, that's the one the Gophers will be in. But the final game of the Big Ten season for the Gophers will be at Rutgers on the 5th of March, and I believe then actually after that there should be a Big Ten tournament that we get to play at least 1 or 2 games in before we bow out ever so gracefully, but don't quote me on that quite yet. So there is your... I think the interesting thing here with the Gophers, before I move on to top 25 real quick and get out of Ball's dribble, is that I really felt like it was almost 100% certain until these last 2 games, until the Maryland game really, no, the last 2 of them, both of them together. Yes, indeed. But I felt it was a certainty that head coach Rich Pitino was going to be out of here at the end of this season before the last 2 games happened. Now, after not only getting that win, but doing it against the 6th ranked team in the country at home, who's in your conference, and then going out and following it up with another solid performance and a win at home against a team you're supposed to beat, maybe Pitino will be able to keep his job here for another year, or at least half a year, here as the coach of the Gophers. I don't know whether he'll want to or not. I don't know if we could fire him if we wanted to or not, because who knows even if we have an athletic director yet at the University of Minnesota. The whole just sports program for the university has been topsy-turvy, to say the least, over the last year or 2 here. And I don't know, that's the only big story in anything Gophers basketball related that you can get out of this season is, will the coach be here next year or not? Will he leave, or will he get fired, or will he still be here? That's the only real thing of intrigue. So just throwing that out there for you. Let me know what you think on Twitter at BDST Show. That'd be great. You should tweet me some sports thoughts. Holy cow, that'd be fantastic. So let's give you just a little bit of general college basketball updating, and then we'll be done with basketball talk. It appears as though the number one team in the country is in fact Villanova out in the Big East. 24-3 is their record. Number 2 team in the country is Kansas. Number 3 team in the country is Virginia. Looks like tied with Virginia is Oklahoma. And then 5th is Xavier, 6th is Michigan State, 7 North Carolina, back on an upswing again. I don't know. I don't trust North Carolina this year one bit. Iowa at 8, representing some Big Ten there again. Arizona at 9, Maryland at 10. So it's pretty good. We got 1, 2, 3. Big Ten's got 3 teams in the top 10. That's not too bad. Louisville ranked number 11 in the country. I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter how they finish, they will not be in the tournament, as they have imposed a postseason ban on themselves for 1 year due to the escort service scandal and investigation going on there. At 12, you've got University of Miami, Florida. 13 is Oregon. 14, West Virginia. 15 is the Duke Blue Devils. 16 is Kentucky. Kind of nice to see them in the middle of the pack for once. 17 is Iowa State. 18 is Indiana. 19 is Baylor. 20 is Purdue. 21, Texas A&M. 22 is the Utah Utes. 23, Notre Dame. 24 is SMU, and the 25th ranked team in college basketball, rounding out the top 25 currently, is the Texas Longhorns. All right, and one final bit of college basketball take that I wanted to squeeze in. I watched quite a bit of the LSU, whoever the heck it was again that they were playing the other night game. I bring it up because I watched it specifically because the best player, the star for LSU Tigers, his name is Ben Simmons, and everyone says he's the consensus number 1 draft pick in this upcoming draft. And people were talking about, should the T-Wolves even be trying to win, or should we be trying to get more lottery balls again, whatever, da-da-da. So I thought, well, I want to check out, what this lottery class looks like even, at least, or what the top of it looks like. And so I watched this Ben Simmons guy play, and let me be one of the first, at least, if not the first, to go on record as saying that Ben Simmons is going to be a giant bust in the NBA. Ben Simmons is Michael Beasley. Okay, but maybe without the love of ganj. He's a bust. He is everything. We see a lot of busts in the NBA, okay? We see a lot of them. They've all got stuff in common. They really do. I'm not saying they're all the same. I'm just saying they've all got stuff in common. Ben Simmons, he's got everything that every bust in the NBA has ever had. Everything that every bust has ever had, Ben Simmons has. And I guarantee you, mark it down right now, he is not going to be a big cat Karl Anthony Towns or an Anthony Davis or anything like that. He is going to be a Michael Beasley. He's going to be playing in Turkey or China in 8 to 10 years. Ben Simmons is going to be a giant bust. Boom, you heard it here first. All right. Well, we got about 3 more things we want to talk about here before we get to our balls deep thought of the day. And yeah, I think we're doing pretty good on Showtime. All right, we'll do them fairly quickie style though. Hope you've enjoyed the show so far. So for our first of these final 3 quickie topics before we get to our balls deep thought of the day, let's start where there was a championship won in the world of NASCAR racing. That's right, the big annual Daytona 500 race was this past Sunday, and it ended in historic fashion with Denny Hamlin winning his first ever Daytona 500, and it was also the first Daytona 500 win for the Toyota team owned by Joe Gibbs, famous former head coach of the Washington Redskins. Now, as I mentioned, it was an incredibly down-to-the-wire finish with just under 2 laps to go. Hamlin was not in the lead. He made a questionable move. It panned out for him, and it was him and Martin Truex Jr. racing towards the checkered finish line. Down at the wire, it was a photo finish And in fact, the race ended up being won by Hamlin by 0.010 seconds. The closest finish in the history of the Daytona 500, at least since NASCAR introduced the electronic scoring, and timing of the races with an official digital clock and timer back in 1993. So congratulations to Team Toyota and team owner Joe Gibbs, as well as Denny Hamlin on their first, respectively, all of their first Daytona 500 win, the biggest single race in racing in the season. Very similar to golf in that regards, I've always thought, where the biggest event, the biggest tournament, the biggest race, the biggest championship, outside of what they've made up now for season-ending stuff, is actually towards the beginning of the race season. I've always found that interesting. Just like in golf, the big tournament is the Masters in April at the beginning of the golf season. But so there is some big NASCAR news for you NASCAR trunkies. See, NASCAR fans aren't called junkies, like they would be in another sport. They're called trunkies because I am a sucker for really bad, not funny puns. All right, so our next quickie here brings us into the world of baseball. Congratulations to all you diehard baseball lunatics out there. Your season is officially underway as pitchers and catchers have reported to spring training. Now, I should know this, and I don't know this for a fact, but I am pretty sure that on Monday is when the rest of the players will report to spring training. However, I could be wrong on that. They might be there sooner than that as well. It appears as though the first spring training game, at least for my and possibly your Minnesota Twins, is coming up here next week on Wednesday, when they will take on the Boston Red Sox. And basically the whole month of March, with the exception of Tuesday, March 1st and Tuesday, March 15th, on every single day in the day of March, with the exception of those 2 days, the Minnesota Twins do have a spring training game. So that is how the Twins will be occupying their month of March, trying to get players ready to go for the season, which starts at the beginning of April. Twins manager Paul Molitor will be in his second year as manager of the team, and it will be interesting to see if he can build on both the momentum and the winning culture that he's trying to change and implement here in Minnesota that he built on and started to establish last year, as well as if he can continue to develop the plethora of young talent that the Twins seem to find themselves with. Now, there are a few minor questions regarding the lineup, both defensively and the hitting order. Defensively, it looks like Sano is going to be moving from third base out to right field with the trading away of Aaron Hicks. It also appears that Joe Mauer and Yohung Park will split time at DH and first base. Trevor Plouffe will be your starting third baseman, as well as possible DH or first baseman as well. Curious to see from a hitting standpoint what Rosario can do. Looks like he's going to be around 5. Plouffe's going to be 4. Talks right now is Dozier's leadoff man. Who's 2? Mauer's 2. Sano's 3. I want to say Buxton's planning on being around 9, and if he can work his way up in the lineup, don't be surprised if he is first or second at some point in the season. But it'll be interesting to see. There's definitely question marks at the plate, what we're going to get out of guys, as well as question marks as what we're going to get out of the field from guys. However, most of those are fairly reasonable and common, and every team's got them to an extent. Just the details might change. Where the Twins really find themselves with a lot of question marks, not necessarily problems. We'll find that out here in the next couple months, but question marks to say the least would be their pitching rotation. Who's going to make the 5-man starting rotation? How people are going to be used in the bullpen, who's not going to get called up from the minors, a la one Jose Barrios. Hopefully he gets called up and is given work fairly early. What we're going to do for our closing situation, with Perkins being back most likely from injury and being an all-star, however, having acquired Jepsen last year at the trade deadline, and he came in and was absolutely fantastic, lights out, much better than Perkins was before he got shut down towards the end of the year. However, he did show spots of being awesome last year in the first half of the season as well. So tons of question marks for the Twins, tons of